going to introduce Brian Jordan, our first speaker, to you. He's a graduate of Virginia Military Institute with a degree in physics and mathematics. He served as U.S. Navy officer and aviator at NAS Patuxent River. While he was there, he served as the operational test director, a test analyst, and an engineer for various aircraft platforms and programs. Brian's been developing products for over 30 years and holds several patents. Currently, he's the president of Jordan Research and Development, LLC, and this is an innovation and design firm with a goal of bringing new ideas to the market. He's also the director of a not-for-profit firm called Robotech Corporation. These design prosthetic digits for digital amputees. And in the community, he's been a football and lacrosse coach as well as a youth mentor. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Hugh. I don't know if I believe half of that, but anyway, it is what it is. So what I wanted to do was talk to you today about innovation as related to Southern Maryland. And it's going to be more of a philosophical type of discussion more than a scientific or anything else. So let me make sure try to make sure this works here. So who are we? And what are we related to Southern Maryland innovation? Okay, as Hugh said, Jordan R&D, we're an innovation and design firm with a goal of creating solutions to problems. We create these solutions in the form of new products, ideas, and innovations. Our mission, as you see there, is to imagine, conceive, and create. And these are some of the products that we've come up with over the years. And we're still working on some of these. It's not all inclusive. There are a lot more things we're doing here. And people always ask, what's our process? How do we come up with things? What do we do? And typically what we do is when we come up with an idea, we determine if there's a market for this idea, with this solution to a problem. And if there is indeed a market, we set in place some type of intellectual property process, whether it's a patent, trademark, copyright, or whatever. Then we come up with some kind of prototype. And from that prototype, we conduct testing and we look into regulatory requirements for the process. Then it comes to the marketing, and that's actually the hard part. We either market, our favorite way of doing things is called the license deal. We actually license our product with outside companies, and they actually are responsible for manufacturing, shipping, advertising, and we collect a royalty. So it frees us up to do other things. The other way we do things in-house with limited production items. Let's say for our prosthetics, we actually build them in-house because they're typically one-ofs. Then sometimes we do a hybrid. We may have some parts of our projects built overseas and some parts built here where we market it. And we are working on bulletproof bracelets as well. Not really, but we do have some bulletproof material we're working on. And our services. This talks about what we do. As you can see there, we have government and private contracts. In particular, one of the things I want to talk about on this slide is that young man right there. He has a prosthetic called the Enable. It's an open source 3D printed prosthetic arm for people that are missing pretty much the entire hand. I have my intern here, George. He's part of our team, and he's actually working on some 3D printed fingers. And we also have a gentleman in El Salvador that we're working with who's actually missing an entire hand. So we're working on a hand for him as well. And these are our partners, that we have locally here. We're part of Techport, University of Maryland, SBDC, CSM, and many other partners as well. Now, the vision. This is our vision. This is what we want to talk about. For me personally, I want Southern Maryland to become a technology hub on the East Coast. We have Charles County, St. Mary's, and Calvert. As you can see here in the slide, we have that center in Hughesville that's kind of like I think it's like a tech center that's built over there. And we have the airport here at St. Mary's. You can see the slide from the slide there, and a little bit of Matt's thunder. We have UAS. And a lot of things are going on. We talked earlier with Matt Scassero about Baltimore, some of the things they're doing there. So those things are happening in this area. Now, why are the best and brightest engineers and startups moving to Silicon Valley in California? I did some research a while back, and what I discovered was college graduates, in particularly engineers, the first place of choice for jobs is Silicon Valley in California. Why is that? You see companies there like, Delphi, Cisco Systems, Apple, and so forth and so on. Why are they going there? And why are startups going to Silicon Valley and not coming to an area like this? And I'll tell you why. It's the mindset, the language, the entrepreneurial spirit. When you go to a place like Silicon Valley, there are lots of entrepreneurs, there are venture capitalists, and that venture capitalist mindset. If you look at that slide, you see that's actually Google. Who wouldn't want to work in a place like that? That's colorful, it's bright. The mindset is totally different than what we have here. In the other image, we have a gentleman climbing a rock wall, at the workplace. And I read an article that talks about the importance of having a park at work, which brings me to something I remember a while back. When I first graduated college, I worked for this company that was an environmental firm that was actually based out of San Francisco. They had an office in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where I worked. And in our courtyard, there was a maze in our courtyard that the director actually put back there. And I'm like, what is this maze? Why is there a maze back here? And he called it the problem-solving maze. So when you're at work and you have problems with work, you have problems at home, walk the maze to kind of clear your mind and kind of reset everything. I thought it was kind of neat and a novel idea to put in the workplace. So it kind of makes work, how do you put it? Not more bearable, but it just kind of changes the mindset while you're at work. And also in Silicon Valley, in that area, entrepreneurship it's a social movement, not a transactional event like we have here on the East Coast. Now, again, when you look at the East Coast, it's a mindset, it's a language. You typically deal with a lot of bureaucracy when it comes out to this area. You hear words like cost, schedule, performance. And one story I want to tell about this is OT versus DT. When I was a young lieutenant many years ago, we have what's called operational tests where we test aircraft. And then there's developmental tests where we test aircraft. Developmental test is first, then there's operational tests. The mindset at that time was DT is DT, OT is OT. So as a young tester, a young operational tester like myself, I would constantly go to DT and say, hey, look, let's work together. Let's get things done. The ultimate goal is to produce a product for the fleet that they can use. And I was always kicked down. I would stand on admirals' desks, and of course, they would always knock me down. But now it's different. Now DT and OT actually work together. I'd like to think that was a lot of my doing, but anyway. And if you look at that picture there, you see a bunch of cubicles. That's not unlike a cubicle where I worked when I was at Pax River or when I was on the East Coast. And I have here also a picture of the logistics lifecycle management system. And my dad thought I made that up, but that's actually a real process that we go through here on the East Coast. Well, not even on the East Coast, but in the government system. So it's a lot of bureaucracy that has to happen before things happen within the government. Work is work, home is home. When you're at work and you come home, you dump it. Now, when you work in an environment like in Silicon Valley, there's a fine line between work and home because people typically enjoy what they do. And another story I'll tell, when I came up with my first product, the Airzuka, many, many years ago, we looked up and down the East Coast for backers to help us with this product. And they wanted to know their bottom line. How much money could they make with this product? And we constantly got doors slammed in our faces. And then I went to New York and met a guy there who knew a guy in California who was a former hippie back in the 60s. And his mindset was totally different. He saw this product and it's like, wow, let's check it out. Let's see where it goes. He didn't even think about money. And today we've sold millions of those units and we still sell that product. And again, the mindset here that I kind of get, and this is strictly my opinion, this type of environment here squashes creativity. And we need to be more like Silicon Valley. And one thing I want to talk about innovation. Innovation is a rainforest, not a plantation. And I'll go ahead and read this. Silicon Valley, and this is by a guy named Victor Huang. He wrote an article a while back, and he said, Silicon Valley is not a plantation created by assembling assets. It is a rainforest, a rich ecosystem thriving because of its diverse elements mixed to create new and unexpected flora and fauna. Victor Wynne. And when you think about that, you think about a plantation and not what most people are thinking about. You're thinking about a plantation is designed to grow crops systematically. You have corn, you have tomatoes, and you harvest it, you sell it, and do the same thing again. And when you think about an ecosystem like a rainforest, it's a true ecosystem that blossoms and you never know what you're gonna get, but it's beautiful. And yet it still feeds a wide variety of flora and fauna. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. And I think we can replicate that here on the East Coast. Not that it's a perfect environment, and they have their share of problems, but it is working and it's producing great products. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. It's my opinion. That's me. Let's continue to make ideas happen. Thank you very much for your time.
Now, before we move into the second part of the segment, any discussion, any questions? Any new ideas?
I'll just throw out, Brian, great comments there. You mentioned coming up through organizations and bureaucratic organizations like the Navy and OT and DT and things, some of the challenges. What has been your biggest tool to overcoming bureaucracy where you come up against it?
Well, for me, it's just been consistency. Like I told the story when I was a young lieutenant and we had the OT controversy. The biggest thing that helped me was just constantly being tenacious and getting in people's faces, positively to make change. I think I told you the story. I would stand on admirals' desks, not literally, of course. The metaphor. But you constantly, hey, look, let's work together. Let's continue to do this. But now that has changed. And I think people see the passion. And I'm very passionate about the military because I was in the military, and our goal was to create a product for the warfighter to make sure they get a good product. So just being tenacious, I think, is the way to do it.
Outstanding. Any questions? I don't see anything up on the message board. So we'll move on to Dr. Kathleen Bravo of East Road Beverages. Dr. Bravo, are you there? Well, we'll go out of sequence and I'll come back to her. Matt. I want to introduce Matt Scassero to you. He's the director of the University of Maryland Unmanned Aircraft Systems Test Site. And he focuses the resources and efforts of the state of Maryland on working with the FAA to integrate UAS into the national airspace. And this, he will enable public access to these valuable assets to empower a flourishing civil and commercial UAS industry. Wow.
Well, thank you very much, you, and I appreciate the short introduction. You get extra, I forgot to say, you get extra credit points for keeping it short. So really happy to talk to everybody here today and with the folks that are joining us virtually. Someday we'll all be back together, but I'm kind of appreciating the efficiencies and the reach that we get with this virtual environment. So it's a really unique opportunity for us to get together. And I think we're going to see a lot of overlap in the comments and the questions and our responses, because we all have a lot of different varieties of experience, perspectives that we bring to this. But a lot of the focal points really come down to some commonalities and the tools and the personality qualities, things like that we use to forge forward in this area called innovation. There's really only one reason to have somebody who's not old, mature. Well, I'm not even sure I'm mature, but anyway, to have somebody like me here, and that's to learn life's lessons faster. With our experiences that we bring, we don't have the energy and the drive of some of the younger entrepreneurs that are out there, but we bring some of those life lessons. Treachery outdoes energy any day. So usually in these kind of meetings and conferences, we talk about entrepreneurship. And I'm not an entrepreneur in the traditional sense. I've never been in the business world. I think of myself as a social entrepreneur, but I'm probably not even that by most people's definition. So I think what I really am as a leadership entrepreneur and a leadership innovator. So that's what I'll try to focus on. And Hugh mentioned my current day job as the director of the UAS test site at the University of Maryland. I also work in the nonprofit world. And when I retired from the Navy, like Brian here, I went into the nonprofit world, social nonprofits. I continue to serve on boards. I'm a facilitator with PTS veterans and working with community issues of inclusiveness and Southern Maryland thought leaders and other groups. Everything I'm going to talk about here, and I'm going to talk about three things, so it's going to be quick. But everything I talk about, my experiences and how I gained my perspective, applies to any area of your lives. So think about that. How is this going to apply to your life as I go through this? I'm going to talk about some of the things that I gained from my life experiences and the sources, give some of the stronger lessons that I've learned. And really, it's about what it takes to be ready. And the reason I really want to focus on that in this innovation discussion is a lot of people think, oh, innovators, they're just so lucky. That entrepreneur that made $1 billion, they're so lucky. Luck has nothing to do with it, other than our spouses. Our spouses are totally luck and a lot of other things. But when it comes to our creation and our ability to innovate, luck is the confluence of a preparation and opportunity. So this is about that preparation piece. So three things I'm going to talk about here. First one, physics is full of laws. And you know that being a physics major, I'm a fellow physics major there. Physics is full of laws. Everything else is guidelines. So when you come up against rules and bureaucracy and regulations, things that they're kind of guidelines. And I say that not in a disrespectful way, because there's obviously things that you got to abide by and when it makes sense. But question things. Always ask yourself, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do it that way? The initiative you mentioned, Brian, about coming up against the testers that are kind of trying to hold you back. I learned that in naval aviation. In naval aviation, they taught us from day one, be ready. Always, you're going to be on the tip of the spear. Radio communications aren't always going to work. You can't always call back to the admiral. You have to be ready to take the initiative and make things happen right then, right there. So that's what we really grew up learning. Even though communications has gotten better and sometimes to our detriment, we still have that mentality of you're out in the tip. You need to be ready to take advantage of that situation and drive and have the initiative to keep pushing forward. And the story there that goes with that one that really brings it to a point was in one of my first combat missions in the first Gulf War in 1991. We were flying a mission and we didn't know exactly what we were going to be coming up against. We had some good intel, but there was a lot of things we didn't know. And they told us, be ready. And we had a strike group to protect. I was flying a protection aircraft, electronic warfare. And we were coming over oil platforms. And one of the things they told us was they might have defenses on the oil platforms, but we didn't really know. So we got up there and we decided, you know what, we need to protect this strike group. We're going to take the initiative. We're going to take a chance to protect the group and go to this area, go into this threat ring that we thought might not be there, might be there. And we found out it was there. Very, very lucidly, we found out that the guns were in fact there. We went into a threat envelope to protect our strike group, but we took the initiative. And when we got back, nobody hammered us. Nobody said, why did you do that? They said, congratulations, good job. You took the initiative, you protect the strike group. So the thing to be ready there for when you come up against those rules and those guidelines and those regulations is knowledge and courage. Knowledge of what you can get away with, knowledge of what you can't get away with, but having the courage to step in there and do it. Just do it. And there's some company that has that as a saying. So when don't wait for the invitation or the organizational structure or the name tag that says you should do it. If you see something needs to be done, step forward and do it. Exactly what you said earlier, Brian. So the next one, you're never going to be the expert in everything. So it really behooves you to gather people around you who know their particular areas better than you do, make them part of your team. And I say team kind of in quotation marks because it doesn't have to be a formal team or by name team or bureaucratic team. It's your self-forming team. It's your self-forming network of people. And that really focuses on one of my 4 leadership verbs. And the first one, listen. You have to have the ability to listen. And the other 3 are listen, think, decide, and act. Those are my 4 leadership verbs. But that listen one, I think, is one of the most important ones because that's how you gain expertise that you don't have. And the story that really highlights that one for me is when I became an air boss on an aircraft carrier, responsible for the flight deck and everything else. Very quickly, flight decks and hangar decks on aircraft carriers are very busy places, very crowded. And we had a thing called a crunch rate. It's how many times you ran 2 airplanes into each other. And now the average taxpayer thinks, well, that hardly ever happens. On an aircraft carrier, traditionally, statistically, you crunch airplanes, 2 airplanes run into each other every 3 days. And that could be breaking a light bulb on the tip of the wing, or it could be a massive crunch of the radome, smashing the radar. On the flight deck, you had a crunch about every 2 weeks. When I took over as air boss, I said, this is unacceptable. This is kind of thinking about it going into the job. This is unacceptable. We have to do better than this. So I got figured, how am I going to do this? I don't know anything about the flight deck. I'm an air boss. I've been in airplanes. I've never run a flight deck. Those kids on the flight deck know how to run a flight deck. So when I walked in, I said, I'm going to have a listening session. And I got everybody together. I said, here's my goals. We're not going to crunch an airplane. Not in a week, not in a month. We're not going to crunch an airplane, period. That's all we're going to do. How do we do that? And I listened to them, and they had wonderful ideas without going into great details. We enacted the things. I listened to them. We enacted the things. We went on deployment. To make a very, very long deployment short, we went a year without crunching airplanes on the flight deck. A year. On the hangar deck, we went 6 months. We went the entire deployment without crunching an airplane on the hangar deck. Amazing, because I listened to the kids. What's that take? Humility. You have to have the humility of knowing you're not the expert. You have to listen to the people who are, whether they're a 17-year-old kid fresh out of high school directing airplanes, or an aviator, or the commander of the air group, whoever that is. Have the humility to listen to them actively listen. And the last one, our kids are watching us, and everybody in the community is watching us. What are we doing to earn their trust, to make sure that we're living up to the ability to be listened to be watched? And the thing for that for me is be special, follow your passion. And get a little bit more into the why here in a second. But the thing about the passion there, the story for me was when I was getting ready to retire from the Navy. Had a wonderful career, got all kind of recognition at the retirement ceremony, the medals, and everything else. And then I was approaching my decisions about what I was going to do next. And my daughter, who at the time was very little, now she's a CSM graduate in her middle of her academic career. At the time, very small daughter, looked at me with big, huge, welling eyes one day as I was getting ready to take off the uniform and said, but Daddy, you're not going to be special anymore. Yeah. If that doesn't make you stop and think about what you're about to do and the decisions you make in your life, nothing will. So that made me think from that day on, what am I doing to be special? What am I doing for people that need to be served? What am I doing for people that need to be stood up for? I mentioned earlier about the socks, my Asian socks today. What am I doing to personify the things that I need to be representing? So the actions there is self-awareness and introspection. Stop and think about what you're doing, who you're being, what are you doing to improve yourself? What are you doing to be a lifelong learner? What drives you? You be you. You're the best one at it, and everybody else is taken. So be you. So in closing, use those tools, and there's lots of other tools that we can bring up and derive from other people's experiences. Take those experiences on. But innovation is energizing, and it's also very hard work. Be ready to endure for yourself, but also for the people you're serving, the people that you're leading, the people you're innovating for. And be ready for the long haul. Dedicate yourself to serve those around you, to thrive off that energy, thriving off the energy of the local community. Like you said, it's all about that energy. We don't have to be Silicon Valley. We have to be us, but be the best us we can be. So thank you very much. And I'm open to any questions, comments.
I have a comment. You mentioned earlier when you first started that you're not an entrepreneur, but I beg to differ. I mean, you certainly have the mindset that I think we're looking for on the East Coast here in Southern Maryland. And it's people like you that are shaping this thing, that have the mindset and have the, what's the word you were saying, the drive to push it. So I certainly appreciate that. So
I appreciate you saying, Brian. And that, for me, that's what it's really all become, is forming the community, finding the community, the self-forming team idea. Who else is it that resonates? I mean, literally vibrates with the same things that you think about, that you want to achieve. And I think that's really the secret. So I appreciate the support for being an entrepreneur. It's not in a business sense, but it's definitely in a serving the community sense.
I remember. Can I say one more thing? The other thing that I really appreciate about your attitude is realizing you're not the smartest in the room, and coming from, as naval aviators, we're typically arrogant, and, when I was line divo, and here you got kids George age, and I'm the smartest. I know everything. I'm a lieutenant, I'm an aviator, so I know everything. But to sit back and listen and let them tell you, how to do your job sometimes is what you need to do. And it was a hard lesson for me to learn.
Yeah.
And even now, like George is my intern, but I listen to him. He's, what are you, George, 17, 18? 17, but I learn a lot from him. So, and that's huge. And I see that in you. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a great point. And people ask about role models, and people tend to look up and older and things like that. Two of my biggest role models are my kids, because they keep me honest about what am I really being. My daughter's my little activist, and she just drives me to be better every day. My son is a government intel analyst, extremely thoughtful kind of individual, very stoic, mirrors some of my qualities. The two of them together would be the perfect person for me. So I try to use them as my role models.
Comment and a question. My comment is that I think you're an entrepreneur who exhibits or exemplifies the aspects of the entrepreneurial mindset, which is one of the things I try and help teach my students, from whom I learn a lot as well. And my question is, the first thing I thought of when you were talking about learning from your flight deck sailors is, can you tell a brief story, the first one that comes to mind, of something you learned from one of those young sailors that helped you help them achieve that 1 year no crunches?
Oh boy. So one, it's kind of related to the flight deck crunches, but it's really related to the sailors themselves. And one of the things was take a breath. Before you jump in, if you don't have to, before you make a hard decision, take a breath. Had a young sailor come up to me before captain's mast, and I was delegated captain's mast as the air boss. I had 500 sailors working for me. So a young sailor, just solid earth kind of kid, would do anything, would literally throw himself in front of an airplane if it would serve the common good. He was that kind of kid. But he tended to get in trouble in ports, as sailors are wont to do. Stop laughing, Brian. And he kept getting in trouble in ports. If we could stay at sea, he would have been great. But he kept getting in trouble in ports. So one day he came up to me for like his third captain's mast. And at that point, I was getting pretty frustrated, pretty fed up with him. And I thought, there's got to be something I can reach out to this kid. So he comes up in front of me. We're up in the tower, beautiful day out, so we're looking at the sea. Seaman Schmuckatelli, I just don't know what to do. What would your mom think? And this little light bulb went off in the back of my head. It said, call his mom. We're at sea. This is back in the day of satellite phones. I called his mom. Thank God she was awake and answered the phone. And I said, Miss Schmuckatelli, your son's in front. He's a great kid, but he just keeps, put him on. And he backed away from the phone. He didn't want the phone. He said, yeah, you're talking to your mom. She got on there. She ripped him up once. I could hear her voice come through the phone. The long story, he handed the phone back. He was the best sailor ever since. And he became a chief later on in his career, did great. The story, the lesson, take a breath. Before you jump into somebody with both feet with your spikes and everything else, take a breath. What's going to get through to that kid? What's going to get through to that older leader? You talk about influencing up. What's going to get through to them? Figure that out and then make that decision.
My only response to that is, boy, is that innovative.
It worked. Thank you.
I would say this to you as well. At our ages, we've seen a lot of workplaces. We've seen large corporations, small companies, big teams, small teams. But the truth of what you're saying extends into any enterprise. If you take a breath, step back, and observe, process, think, and then respond. And remember, you've only got one chance to get it right before you either react and mar the situation forever or lose the opportunity. And I just wanted to say that in agreement with you.
Great observation. Thank you.
We also have a chat. I'm so sorry. We also have a question over Zoom. When you reflect on the regional tools and resources that have supported your innovation efforts, what were they?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I heard parts of it.
Yes, sir. When you reflect on the regional tools and resources that have supported your innovation efforts, what were they?
By far and away, the biggest one, the two biggest ones are perspectives and collaboration. I've lived around the world on naval bases, other travels that I've done, visiting my son in his academic environment, Scotland. This community has more collaborative spirit than anywhere I've ever lived, anywhere in the world. So the ability to want to work together to solve common problems, not just business and not just base and national defense, which is critically important, but everything. Now we're going after inclusiveness and some of the other more social issues. So the ability to want to work together to solve these problems is critical. So that collaboration piece, but then the fact that we have so many different perspectives, being a military community, but also the watermen and the aquaculture that have been here for literally centuries, in the spirit of making things happen. That all works for us. So bringing together the perspectives, the wide variety of perspectives with a collaborative spirit, I think is what will lead us to our successes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Matt. I'm getting so many things to think about. I almost hate to move on, but now I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Dale Moore. Most of you, he needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to give it a try, Dale. Dr. Moore is recently retired. Huh?
Make it short.
Yeah, you rascal. Dr. Moore's recently retired from the Navy as the Director of Strategy and Innovation, Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Navy for Research, Development, Test, and Evaluation. And he launched the Moore Group, LLC, which offers strategy, innovation, and transformational services. Dr. Moore is committed to maximizing cooperative effort because a singly directed effort cannot respond to the increasingly complex interconnections of the world, and especially not at the current time. So I'm going to leave it there, Dale, and let you take it away and inspire us.
Well, thank you very much, Hugh. And can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, I can.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you for hosting this forum. I think this is the kind of forum we absolutely need in the Southern Maryland area. Southern Maryland is a crown jewel, not only in the nation, but in the world. And we've had a lot of discussions recently about how we can be an exemplar as a region to inculcate all the best practices, all the best thinking, coming together, collaborating and innovating and learning. Can you see me okay?
Yes, we can. Fine.
Okay. So I think that, we have largest estuary in the world with the Chesapeake Bay right around the corner. We've got the busiest flight test center in the world with Pax River, $45 billion a year activity. It's really, we're right on the around the corner to the most powerful city in the world. So I think we need to set our expectations high to make a real difference at a global scale. One of the themes I just want to talk about, and Matt hit on it well, and so did Brian. The world's a big place, and there is a lot going on. So I would encourage everyone to stay aware, be mindful, be attentive to the world around us. Knowledge is doubling at a phenomenal rate, and just keeping up with that is a chore all by itself. But it's really about staying aware, making sense, giving meaning and understanding, to get, the learning focus so that you're growing and developing, thinking things through, and then taking all that knowledge and wisdom and creatively thinking and innovating. So kind of pulling all that together is what I think the region needs to be doing, built on collaboration, built on the best tools and the processes. When I left DAS and RDT&E, we were trying to drive agile and adaptive innovation ecosystem concepts across all the Navy research and development establishment sites which are like Pax River, like Dahlgren, like Indian Head. There's 17 of them around the country. And we're trying to promote those kind of concepts. Naval X has kind of grabbed that and ran with that concept as we go forward. But I think that was really, really important. So in the meantime, I've been busy since I've retired. I'm on the board of directors of the International Association of Innovation Professionals. Hugh and I have talked about this. They are a professional certification of innovation organization, nonprofit. We are their chief strategist. We're in the process of developing our first global strategy document, as well as building a global innovation awards program, which we're really excited about. And we're in the process of rewriting the Global Innovation Science Handbook, which is the body of knowledge that the association uses for its certification programs. And that will include over 70 chapters focused on everything you can imagine, soup to nuts, in terms of innovation. So we're very excited about that. I've been involved in a lot of local and national activities, supporting Energetics Technology Center in their National Energetic Materials and Systems Study. That is a whole of government study for energetics, working with NASA, Department of Energy, across the Department of Defense to make recommendations to Congress on how we can improve those ecosystems across academia, government, and industry. So that's moving out at a very fast pace. We've had the opportunity to interface with the Army Research Lab and the Army Futures Command. We just briefed the 75th Innovation Command in the Army. That's a reserve unit responsible for connecting the dots across the Army to foster and facilitate innovation. We're working with ONR in terms of small business innovation research and bringing in small disadvantaged businesses to facilitate their engagement in the SBIR program. And we're looking at about 100 cities that we're focusing on. Been closely connected with Department of Navy's Disruptive Technology Laboratory. That's a community of interest of over 400 people across the Department of Defense and National Security infrastructure, as well as what they call their asymmetric industrial warfare effort, which is a rapid prototyping, demonstration, experimentation effort to take emerging technologies and combine them with commodities rapidly to get that capability out there deployed with limited lifetime. But the idea is to solve the warfighter problem affordably at scale. And involved with Naval X and the Tech Bridges programs. I've recently been involved in the Joint Strike Fighter and their strategic office, helping them to strategize their way going forward. That's an international program of tremendous scale. Also involved in the Department of Navy's International Engagement Office, which also includes ONR Global and the Navy International Programs Office. And we've been focusing on, with this infrastructure bill that's emerging, the concepts of smart cities and smart regions. And if you just Google smart cities, you will be amazed at how much is going on around the world to digitize and virtualize cities, basically, and using Internet of Things technologies, cloud technologies, all these emerging technologies coming together. That's a whole storyline unto itself, but we've been talking about how we might be able to do that kind of thing in Southern Maryland. Recently, because of the Global Innovation Awards program, I got connected with the Office of Personnel Management, and we're working to build a strategic plan for the Senior Executive Service and Performance Management to inculcate innovation leadership across the entire federal government and hopefully spin outs to industry as well. And that really came out of the ISO 56000 work, which is that we've been doing. And that standard is evolving. It's a series of standards. There's 300 global experts working on this from 50 different countries. And the idea is just like any ISO standard that you train auditors, they go into organizations and companies, they go down the checklist, they make sure you're doing what you said, and ultimately tell you where you are, what your gaps are, and try to build a rectification program to get you accredited so that you have a, I'll call it an inculcated operating system that supports continuous innovation. So that's pretty exciting. working with the Defense Acquisition University and on developing lead systems integration capabilities. Typically in acquisition programs, and Brian talked about that map, which I have a lot of experience with through my career, that convoluted DAU map. Typically we'll build a contract and throw it over to a prime. What I've been trying to promote is this idea of open architectures, modularity, owning the requirements, and the government orchestrating across the innovation ecosystems so that it's relatively seamless and low cost to change out capabilities, to be able to plug and play, so to speak, across platforms rather than having to go through a prime every time and pay what you pay there. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity there. It's a heavy lift, but we're going forward. And we recently are connecting now with the Navy, with the National Defense Industrial Association, who has a whole group on systems engineering, education, and training that we're working with. So that's pretty exciting. Working with Matt and Sybil on this Southern Maryland Thought Leaders Group. We just finished up our third seminar there. And really the vision there that all came together, that everyone kind of agreed to, was this focus on collaboration, innovation, and learning. So that was very powerful, and we got alignment around that, which was good. I work hard to bring the outside in to Southern Maryland. So I'm connected with a lot of nonprofit activities, including the New England Complex Systems Institute, the Academy of Management, the U.S. Naval Institute, and we've got I co-wrote a chapter in a book that's coming out April 15th called AI at War. It was edited by Dr. Sam Tangredi from the War College and George Galderisi from Nywick PAC. Recently joined AFCEA. They co-hosted the NAML event, Navy Applications for Machine Learning. Had an opportunity to speak there. And the Patuxent Partnership, I'm on their board of directors. I was working in the academic group, and now I've moved over to the strategy group, supporting Body Green and them. So there's a lot of interconnections that are going on, a lot of great momentum, a lot of great curiosity, which I think is fantastic, and a lot of desire to be that exemplar that we can be. So we're trying to get all the ducks aligned, all the stars aligned, and move out with the passion that I know we can muster to make a real difference for the region, for the state, for the nation, and the world. So from there, I'll just leave it from there. Hugh, over to you.
And you say you're retired?
I love learning. I love turning that learning into value, supporting, not just being able to move the mountain, but the whole mountain range. That's kind of I love it. I absolutely love it. It's my hobby. It's my passion, and I'll keep doing it forever, probably.
Yeah. I was listening to you just now, and thank you for bringing home the uniqueness of this area that we live in and its proximity to the big world. I think often as a resident of this area, we don't see outward like this. And that's kind of one of the focuses of the group that we've assembled here today, is some of us look inwards, some of us look outwards, but it's all to the benefit of the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the inventors, the people in our region that can benefit from our collective experience and collective expertise. All they have to do is reach out and ask, and perhaps we can start doing a better job of reaching in and bringing them in and creating as much equity as we can among our population. What are your thoughts, Dale?
I was thinking as you're talking, I like to look at systems and try to think about what are the constraints in the system. Mm-hmm. All systems have a single constraint to try to address. And I spent some time, I went out to, the conference board has an innovation masterclass out in Silicon Valley. And I went out there and I visited with DIU and talked to them. And it's really interesting, Silicon Valley's nestled between, Cal Berkeley and Stanford. Right. And one thing that I think is our system constraint, and I know we're working hard to rectify this, is a firm foundation in research. that exploration space, given all these technologies that are just accelerating, the innovation opportunity, latent potential there is just through the roof. And the researchers are the ones pushing the envelope to spin out these kinds of new ideas, new concepts, new applications. And I think, we don't have a strong research presence. Even Pax River has backed way off on research as a focus because of the complexity of acquisition programs. And they got the money. And so things kind of migrate in that direction. And, when we backed down in 95, we got rid of Warminster, which was our Naval Air Development Center. We still have Naval Research Lab, but there's kind of a chasm between PAX and NRL. I used to run NavAir's Materials Research and Engineering for 9 years, and we were one of the last bastions, so to speak, of a research group. But that's again, it's gone toward sustainment, it's gone toward acquisition, but that feedstock, that front end, and any way we can bring that in. I remember Matt will appreciate this when he had Dr. O'Shea come down. He's the director for research up at the University of Maryland. And he got up there and I'm like, oh my God, this guy, he's got it. He's got it nailed. He had it all figured out. And it was like, oh my God. So that really is the thing. When you're in a world, you don't really know what's missing, but when you get outside and you see different cultures and different ways things are, then you start to see the gaps. And that's the one gap. If I were king or queen for a day, I would really push the research piece to open up new apertures and understandings.
Very good. And in fact, you bring up the concept of the government as a customer of first resort in funding and encouraging research into different areas. That basically came from the aeronautical developments in the late 1930s and then was codified in the Manhattan Project during World War II. Those things wouldn't have happened if the government hadn't opened the national labs and encouraged the research. And I mentioned that because we're in the middle of, what is it? How many federal labs do we have in the region according to economic development?
I think 13, something like that.
Yeah. So we're right in the middle of this, and it's too big of a resource for us to ignore, but it's not the only resource. So I just wanted to bring that out, and I'm glad you helped me do that. Because as we've all been saying, the answer isn't just one source. We need to diversify our approaches and our relationships with each other, and we need to train across generations, because we have really amazing resources here that are grayer than I am, and they have contributions still to make. And one of the purposes of the Velocity Center is this collision between these people who have knowledge they want to share, who want to acquire more knowledge themselves, and who want to transfer it. We've got a large innovation playground here, 13,000 square feet of it, everybody. And we'll tour the place in a future program. But that's why we're here, to allow collisions between the different parts of the community. And part of the community is the Navy at Indian Head, the different research groups there. And then we have a wonderful military alliance council that's part of the town. And we have all sorts of untapped resources through here. And I thank you for helping me bring that out. So are there any questions from our distance? Oh, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
just Dale, this is Matt Scassero. I really appreciate what you said there about the research component, and really looking forward to the new research building opening up at USMSM this fall and being that open playground for Navy, University of Maryland, local researchers, local people working in technology, working together there. So hopefully that'll be a great link in the chain. One thing that I know, you're a voracious reader, and folks, a lot of younger folks, a lot of high energy folks look at things like reading lists, the CNO's reading list, Commandant of the Marine Corps' reading list, university reading lists, and they kind of think of that as an old concept. Can you talk about the value of being widely read is to you and what it means to you?
Oh boy, that's a big one. I'm totally invested, right, Matt? Well, so knowledge is constructed, right? You're adding to the corpus that you have. You're learning through associations with what you get exposed to. New knowledge is all around us. And you know, it changes. The key is to challenge your mental models, right? How you view the world, and to interrogate those to make sure you're on target given the information, right? And being open-minded is really critical. So when you read diverse sources of credible information and data, and there's tons of it out there that's free, by the way. The World Economic Forum is a great place that I go to regularly to take a look at what their reports and things. But it helps. It helps develop your critical thinking, your creative thinking, your open-mindedness, your innovativeness to consider the new. And unless you're learning, you tend to get kind of rooted in a rut, so to speak, and you don't change very easily. You know, Jack Welch has a great quote, if you're not changing as fast as the world around you, the end is near. And learning something of value is the route to change, right? So we need to become change ready. Joseph Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize winning economist, wrote a book called Creating a Learning Society. And it's outstanding. The whole front end is the learning theory, and the back end's the economics. Said, hey, it's all about learning, and then turning that learning into value. However, you can do that, efficiency or effectiveness, right, at scale to grow economic output, national security, all those things. It's a big world out there. It's really interesting. The more you know, the more you're able to learn. So it kind of is a rippling effect, that amplifying effect actually over time. And you get it as old as me, Matt, you know, it's just hard.
Thank you both. Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks a lot, Dale.
Oh, sorry, excuse me, Hugh. We do have another question on Zoom, which is, how can emerging entrepreneurs and innovators get involved and receive support? So for me, it's all about networks. And in fact, I gave a presentation at PAX Partnership as part of an IEEE paper I wrote about leadership and network-based view. Creating these networks enables you to make these connections that you didn't have before across diverse sources. So I'd encourage people to seek out new networks, new connections. I've joined a number of nonprofit societies. They're not very expensive to join, but they open up so many opportunities to new thoughts, new ideas, new sponsors, right? New collaborators. I recently did a deep dive study on quantum technology, and I found out that Singapore had a tremendous strategy. In 2006, they decided quantum was going to be a strategic emphasis area for them, and they purposefully put together the research networks that they could collaborate with. And today, they are right there at the hub of a lot of this quantum activity and well respected in their research. So they made a commitment, a long-term commitment to set that in. So it was the connections and relationships and accelerating the learning, whether it's how you create a business, start a business, sustain a business, how you market the business or the products, all that kind of feeds together. So it really, I think it really is about the networks of information and people to come together for what you're trying to achieve.
If I can double tap on something Dale said there about the networking too, that's very critical for you as an individual, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, and that's being coming forward with yourself, coming forward with your ideas, what you're working on, but also with what you stand for, because that network is good, but they have to know what you're about and what they can interrelate with you on, what they can connect with, they can collaborate with you on. And a great example of that is Matt Hayes. He's a unmanned propulsion development, engine kind of guy, came from Lockheed. Now he's on his own as an entrepreneur with his own company. He was having trouble with the engine stuff, and he's still working on the engine stuff. But when COVID happened, he totally pivoted, and because people knew that he was about serving people and he wanted to use technology in the service of people, he got involved with a group that ended up creating the Hot Box and the whole nonprofit Southern Mountain Loves You, how to disinfect PPE using heat, and they made a company out of it. And it was a great effort. They got emergency clearance from the FDA. A great effort, long duration time, but really tough, and they worked through it. But nobody would have known that about him unless Matt Hayes was Matt Hayes. And he stepped forward and people got to know him and what he was worth. So Dale, your connections there of how we understand each other, what we each bring to the table, and that networking value is spot on.
And Matt, it's really about leadership at all levels, right? I mean, Matt decided to lead. He made a commitment to lead. And that commitment is really, critical, right?
And I want to echo on that as well, Dale and Matt. Matt Hayes also understood the importance of knowing your own limitations, realizing that he put together a team. And that's something I learned too a while back, was understanding that I'm not the expert in everything. When putting together a business or you have an idea, understanding, putting together the right people to help you with that, people that understand money, people that understand networking, people that understand the things you don't. And that's crucial, and that's helped us grow. And I think that's helped Matt Hayes, because Matt and I have had long conversations about that, when he was developing the hot box, and him and Tommy were talking about who to get together, put the right team together in order to make this a success. And I think that's why it's successful.
They're referring to an effort by a nonprofit called Southern Maryland Loves You. And this was stood up back at the beginning of the pandemic last year to respond to a need to sanitize disposable PPE. And the team, how fast did you all do this? From idea to actual first demonstration hot box? 60 days?
Yeah, it was really quick.
And so just for those who aren't familiar, what happened was they put it on a trailer, took it up to La Plata to the hospital, and tested it there, providing reuse of the very scarce masks and other devices, gowns, at a crucial time. And so this, I think, is one of the examples of, excuse me, of how our local resources can come to bear on a local problem in response to a national pandemic, an international pandemic. So it's just amazing. And I can't talk about these people enough. They did just a wonderful job of cooperating, reaching out, learning new things, and learning that hard lesson. In this state, there's two kinds of people in the world. There are those who are humble and those who will be humble. It's just a matter of time.
Hey, Hugh, I think there's an important point here too, is that innovation can cover anything. It can be a product, a service, a process. ETC Corporation stepped up and helped the Hyattsville police force come up with a process to decontaminate their cars and decontaminate their gear. They never would have done that on their own. That it got on the news and all that. It was all good. But they just stepped up and did it. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
Exactly. Well, thank you again, Dale, and thank you, panel. We're going to move on now. I'm going to introduce you to one of CSM's own, Dr. John Short. He's an experienced engineer, entrepreneur, and educator. In addition to being CSM faculty, he's the president of his own company, SJS Incorporated. It's a 25-year-old holding company with a variety of business interests. Dr. Short has significant product development and startup experience in both private and DoD environments. He's in his 10th year as an engineering professor at CSM. My, how the time flies. And as the CSM Professor of Entrepreneurship, he has been the primary developer of CSM's Technology Transfer Education Program. He's also a founding member of the Southern Maryland Regional Innovation Collaborative, the RIC Advisory Board. As a certified strategic, I need new glasses. As a certified strategic doing workshop leader, He's also spearheading the RIC's strategic doing community engagement efforts. So now we're going to look at a different fold in our innovation ecosystem. Take it away, John.
Thank you, Hugh. Give me just a second here. I am going to share a couple of slides and tell a story. It's not letting me share what I want to share. That's Brian's. Okay. We will extemporize, which is fine. I don't really need the slide. If you look at my remarks, you will see that they are covered in blue. This itself touches on a couple of things that we talked about. One is always be learning. The second is collaborate. So let me start by just touching on a couple of these remarks. Hugh just said that we need to look both inward and outward as we seek to learn and to innovate. Dale talked about having a global focus and all of the innovation efforts that are going on within the DoD. Brian talked about a local business entrepreneurship effort, and we just mentioned the hot box, a local social entrepreneurship effort. I would like to give you an example of a just forming social entrepreneurship effort in Southern Maryland and use it as an illustration of how this process is working today as we speak in Southern Maryland. But first, let me say that over the last 3+ years of my 10-year tenure at CSM, I've been privileged as a CSM faculty member to get to know the Southern Maryland innovation ecosystem and play some small role in helping it to evolve. For example, I've had the opportunity to be involved with, as Hugh just introduced, the Southern Maryland Regional Innovation Collaborative, or the RIC. And I just mentioned innovation in the title, Innovation Collaborative, and we've been talking all morning about innovation. And it occurs to me we haven't defined innovation yet. Now, there are as many definitions of innovation as there are innovators, okay? So what I'm gonna do, without claiming primacy of my definition, is give you mine. Innovation is ideas plus implementation, or ideation plus implementation. Thomas Edison is supposed to have said that invention is, what was it? Invention is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And the implementation part of what innovation entails is part of the story that I'd like to tell. Now, one other comment about this is people often have trouble distinguishing between innovation and entrepreneurship. And the way I think about it is the idea of implementation and entrepreneurship go together. And that's because entrepreneurs, or people with the entrepreneurial mindset, are all about implementation. So that, as you've heard from Brian, as you've heard from Matt, they're about getting results and implementing. And to be good at that, you have to have the entrepreneurial mindset, which I teach in some of my classes. And this entrepreneurial mindset is applicable, as you've heard, everywhere. And so with that as background, I want to say a little bit about the RIC and then tell a story about how all of the things we've talked about today come together in a local social entrepreneurship effort. So the RIC, just again to finish talking about the RIC, is made up of representatives from 5 regional organizations that have banded together to promote 3 primary areas. The organizations involved are the Economic Development Departments of Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's County, the College of Southern Maryland, and the Southern Maryland Tri-County Council. And as I've said, I've been privileged to be involved with this group since its inception. And we kicked off December of this year due to COVID delays. We've been at it for about 1.5 years now. And hopefully you'll be hearing great things and getting involved in the months and years to come. The 3 initiatives that the RIC is pursuing are promoting Southern Maryland's cultural assets and identity, a crucial part of collaboration and innovation, helping its existing businesses to diversify in innovative ways. That is the economic development focus, and also supporting business startups like Brian Jordan's by developing a robust startup community in the Southern Maryland region. Let's see. Oh, one more comment about the RIC is it is all about identifying, combining collaborative networks within Southern Maryland. So if this concept has appealed to you, contact your economic development department, me, come to some of the events that will be taking place in coming months and get connected and innovate with your fellow innovators. So that's a little bit about the RIC, but what I really want to talk about is this morning is an organically involved idea, a social entrepreneurship effort, if you will, that's been tentatively dubbed Reimagining Indian Head. Of course, we're coming to you from the Velocity Center in Indian Head this morning. And so as you'll see, part of the way this opportunity has come together has to do with the fact that CSM has devoted significant resources to try and have an impact in the town of Indian Head and its environments. It would take more time than I have right now to thoroughly describe to you the interesting combination of spontaneous innovation and collaborative action that's resulted in this initiative. But suffice it to say that the Reimagining Indian Head project I'm going to briefly outline is just one step towards helping Southern Maryland develop a thriving, collaborative culture of innovation. Now, if we had the slides, I would be showing you a project brief that is a single slide describing the Reimagining Indian Head project, which we're trying to get underway. But we'll just have to imagine that you can see the slide, and I'll paint word pictures of the various things you need to see. So let me tell you a little bit about how this project and Reimagining Indian Head and the proposal that we prepared came to be. A few months ago, the president of the College of Southern Maryland, Dr. Maureen Murphy, suggested something like a Hacking Our Community exercise, similar to the existing Hacking Baltimore initiative with which she had become familiar. Hugh Burrell got wind of this and mentioned it to me, and we chatted. We decided to run the idea past another innovator that we collaborate with, Sybil Anderson, whom we've been working with over the last year and a half on a variety of projects. And I should mention here that Sybil is CSM's Executive Director for Equity and Inclusive Diversity. And I should also say that many of us, Matt is one of the chief amongst us, many of us working to establish the culture of innovation we're discussing are committed to ensuring this culture develops with an emphasis on equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's important, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Sybil, when we talked with her, had many important suggestions that we incorporated in the project plan that we've developed. Once the plan had been pulled together and turned into a pitch, that's an entrepreneurship term for an idea that we hope to implement, we presented it to a group that I work with
called the Smart Innovation Team, which was an outgrowth of an initiative that Matt was involved in getting off the ground last summer. Maybe you're beginning to see a theme here. The Reimagining Indian Head project was presented, and this group enthusiastically agreed that it would like to be part of it. They decided they had a passion for it. As a result, we gained the assets represented by several successful local companies, access to technical expertise to help organize the project, and also access to opportunities for funding. Now, we haven't rolled this out yet, but all of this stuff is percolating in the background, and that's the nature of implementation in the collaborative innovation environment. The team, through other projects we've done together, has become experienced in launching initiatives like this, and we immediately began to develop the project timeline that I'll talk about next. I don't have the slide and we don't have the time. There's been so much good stuff here today. So I just want to mention two aspects of the project that, that illustrate some of the things we talked about today. The first step that we're actively working on now is to form a core team. Now, the Smart Innovation Team is not the core team. We want to form a core team based on proven innovators with particular experience of the Indian Head area in Charles County. And this goes back to Matt's comment about listening to the kids on the flight deck and Brian's comment about, tried to get your quote here. Brian's comments about putting together a team. My handwriting is awful, as some of you know. The other thing that I want to mention in the minute or two I have left is that the way the Smart Innovation Team works and the way the RIC is trying to build a collaborative culture of innovation in Southern Maryland is through a framework for innovative change called strategic doing. And Hugh mentioned that I'm a certified strategic doing facilitator. The goal of what we're trying to do initially is to hold a workshop based here at the Velocity Center, sometime hopefully in late spring or early summer, that will bring together interested members of the Indian Head community to work through the 4 steps of the strategic doing process, which very briefly are imagining what we could do, deciding what we should do, committing to what we will do, and meeting regularly together, usually on a 30-day basis, to share in a brief 30-minute meeting to discuss the progress we've made and what we need to do going forward. This is called a 30-30 meeting. Now, there's a graphic that I really wish we had, the only thing that I wish we had a picture of on the screen, which illustrates the way strategic doing is different from strategic planning as it's traditionally done. Strategic planning is a linear process. Strategic doing is all about the networks and implementation. There's a lot more I could say about reimagining Indian Head and the strategic doing network or framework, but my time's up, so I'll just leave you with the following thought. Everyone you've heard speak today is working in their own way to help Southern Maryland develop the collaborative culture of innovation that the Reimagining Indian Head project illustrates. My hope is that you'll support this work and other initiatives, such as the RIC, as they become more established in Southern Maryland and help grow the collaborative culture of innovation I've described. Thank you.
Now I'm going to move on real quickly because we're almost out of time. And I've got Wynne Briscoe coming next, who, if I read all of the things that you've done, Wynne, and all the awards that you've won and all the recognition you've had, I'll use up your time. So I'll simply say that she's a very highly prized member of the CSM family. She runs our Small Business Development Center. And Wynne, will you take it away and tell these people how we can help them realize these dreams that we've been talking about?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. And I apologize for the interest of time. I won't do the full PowerPoint presentation highlighting the services of the Small Business Development Center, but just so that you know, We are located and hosted, as Hugh has stated, with the College of Southern Maryland. And we have business consultants that are here to assist you from that start phase of just coming up with your concept idea through your existing business and exit strategy. There is a consultant in every county, Charles, St. Mary's, and Calvert County, to be able to better assist you. We also have a statewide network of technology team members with an extensive level of experience in every type of technology you can imagine to help you with your innovation as well. I have a technology commercialization certification, which in short means that I can take you from concept out to mass production and manufacturing through that prototype process, as well as your intellectual property stages. And we work very closely, as the team has said. I apologize, I'm not there with them, my fellow innovators, but we are a very close ecosystem here in Southern Maryland. We work very well together, and we support each other and the initiatives and the programming that we have. And so as a collaborative effort, in addition to the RIC, as John has stated, we also participate with Southern Maryland Innovates, which is a meetup. It was previously called SMIT, and now it's called SMIME. And that brings together the 3 counties and the innovators and the inventors and just the thought leaders who want to connect. We typically meet the 2nd Thursday of every month. And you can visit us on social media as well as on the website under Southern Maryland Innovates. And also for the Small Business Development Center. And we work with you, again, through those stages. Connect with us so we can connect you with those local resources that are available. And the events that we are also putting on as well. I'd like to at least be able to highlight last month for Black History Month, we were able to put on in conjunction with TechPort, Southern Maryland Innovates, and TechCo. We did a collaborative event, which was the first Southern Maryland Minorities, Inventors, and Innovators Roundtable that was held live at TechPort to just be able to highlight from the history perspective, and then those who are successes now in our Southern Maryland region, as well as statewide. So utilizing Jordan Research and Development. Also, Brian and Donna have been great success stories and worked alongside with them in their business as they've come up with so many different innovative ideas, concepts, and products. And so we'd love to be able to support any entrepreneur or any thought leader that comes up with a concept that they'd like to be able to bring to market. We're here to support you with our no-cost business consulting and our no-cost training. So I'll just put in the chat our contact information for the interest of time to leave time for question and answer at the end. Thank you.
You always pack so much into every time we visit. Thank you, Wynne. Any questions for her?
Well, just a comment, I'll say for her and John, the SBDC is the center of my vision for Southern Maryland becoming an innovative hub, along with CSM, because I've learned so much. I've been a student of John Short and a student, or I don't know if you call me a student or a customer, but you guys have just helped me tremendously. And for my brief, you see our partners. I mean, everyone here has helped us out in some fashion. Bonnie Green with the PAX partnership, CSM, UAS, Matt. So it's truly a collaborative effort, and I appreciate it.
Wynne, I have a quick question for you. In your role as the director of SBDC for the Southern Maryland region, you probably have a broader perspective than any of us on this innovation ecosystem that we're talking about in Southern Maryland. Could you say a few words about your perspective on where the Southern Maryland innovation ecosystem is and where you either think it's going or would like to see it go?
Yes, John, and I will agree. I'm not sure who mentioned earlier. I think it was Matt that talked about this region being the most innovative that he's traveled to. I can definitely agree. So as a previous business consultant with my own firm, I was based out of the DC area, and there was nothing like that, even though it was very urban. they weren't collaborative. Everyone was busy doing their own thing. They were in their own bubbles, in their own silos. So this is my first time really seeing in a rural environment over the last 3 to 5 years, everyone coming together and saying, we'd like to be on the same sheet of music. How can we collaborate? How can we support and work together with programming and initiatives to support this ecosystem? So it's been incredible to see this process. And I'm from St. Mary's County, so this is an incredible thing to see this growth, to know that Pax River is here. And yes, that is one of our income drivers, but it's so nice to see the commercialization and the independence from Pax also as well, that we can stem and grow from with technology that's here, and the creativeness. I just love the minds of the people from Techport to the Velocity Center, as we're all coming together, the Higher Ed Center, everyone, just the incredible minds of people when we just come together has really amazed me for this region.
Thank you. Matt?
Hey, Wynne, Matt here. Great comments, and sorry we had to shortchange on time a little bit to get
No, it's perfect.
your whole dog and pony, but you have so much to offer. One of the things that has always reached out to me, just like it has with the other panelists and a few other people like Sybil and others, is there certain people that you just want to work with, and you're one of those people. You know, when you just get involved in something, that's, yeah, I want to go be on that thing.
Amen.
How do you communicate, you personally, how do you communicate that energy, that passion? How do you get that across to people in a short period of time, a short concept, whatever?
How do I communicate it, or how do others? I truly believe that it has to be within you. I know for years I have taught in various sectors over the last 20 years, entrepreneurship classes. And when my little brother came to me and said, I want to be a business owner just like you, and he was going off to Bowie State and he has a degree in business. And I said to him, go get your degree and then come let me teach you business, because they are two very different things. And I'm very, very strong on academics, but I also know that there's things that textbook you just never learn. You really have to connect with the everyday application. So I'm a huge advocate of mentorship. Before the pandemic, I was a keynote speaker every month with St. Mary's County Public Schools. I would go in for their once a month, and we would work with their Academy of Leadership and their Future Business Leaders of America program. So understanding that it starts young. So young entrepreneurship is definitely one of my passions. Connecting with people at their core is really a key thing. It's not as easy as it's taught, as much as it is within them.
Wow. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Agatha.
Might want to talk. Yeah, come over.
Wow, yeah, that's new stuff.
There you go.
All right.
That's all right.
Okay.
That's
Ms. Angasa Ichile McKenzie. I'm from Southern Marylanders for Racial Equality. I'm also the chairperson of this Criminal Justice Coordinating Council's Racial and Ethnic Disparities Subcommittee. I'm also a realtor and a former teacher.
Wow.
3 minutes down the road. I don't live in Indian Head itself, but I'm not far. This is my district. And I was just waiting to hear everyone speak. I'm so glad everyone is here today. And I just wanted to hear what was being done as far as all of these innovations that are coming here, how those innovations will be shared, how the equity will spread throughout the community. We have such huge disparities in this county, economic disparities. We have people who are being undereducated, people who are underemployed, people who don't even have basic infrastructure here. And much with Silicon Valley, if we're trying to kind of replicate some of the successes there, making sure that we're not gentrifying commercially, industrially, this area without making sure that everyone in this community can benefit from it in some way. And I know you all are in good hands, especially because I see Sybil is here. Hi, Sybil, and Ellen Flowersfield, who I've had some of these equity discussions with. And I just appreciate you all. But if you have any way for us as an organization to get involved with spreading whatever messages you have as far as getting people involved or bringing people in, please let me know.
This is music to my ears. I so appreciate you coming out and being part of us today, because we've been talking, Ellen and Sybil and Wynne and John, all of us here have been talking about how do we start from the ground up, building a foundation for everybody. So we know what we think is right, but you're actually the first community member that's come up and stepped up and said this. And so welcome. And please, I'll put you on our mailing list, and we would love to have your input and your group's input, because the only way we're going to craft anything is not necessarily through a program, but through total inclusion of every voice that we can find. And I mean, we can't just say the door is open to everybody. We've got to go out and walk through the community and find people and bring them in and show them. So what you'll see in the next few months here, I'm the director of the place, and we're about to start equipping the maker spaces. And as we equip them, we'll have tours. We're very invested in STEM, STEAM, arts for the community, and other things that reach in, but we will need help developing programs that we haven't even conceived of yet. So we're welcome. That's all I can say. Yeah, John, real quickly.
I just want to be very practical and ask you to meet me after this so that we can discuss a little bit more reimagining Indian Head, the idea we have, because you sound like the prototypical core team member that we need to learn from. So hopefully we can chat after we're done.
And if I can say something really quick as well, Hugh, to that. To echo what Wynne said is, starting early with education with the kids. And that's why, I've gotten with Bonnie Green, the PAX partnership, and Hugh and I have talked about it as well, of using the Velocity Center as a way of bringing in young people. Here we have my intern, I'll say my mentor, my intern, George, who's a high school senior who wants to be an engineer. So he's helping us with our company. And we want to be able to open that to the community and get kids, young adults, and teaching about engineering. And one of the things we're doing at Techport, and hope I'm not overstepping my bounds, but I'll talk to Tommy about it later. We're starting a program where kids that are suffering academically, we're going to have a tutoring session at Techport during the off hours at night. So kids that are in high school that are suffering will have teachers that can tutor them and get them up to speed, while at the same time seeing what we're doing in the community, seeing what kind of engineering things we're doing, seeing what kind of collaborations, and maybe get them thinking about their futures in engineering. So yeah, we could certainly.
Thank you.
I think I had something, but I think Wynne had something too. Wynne, did you want to say something on to her question there?
Yeah.
No, I just made the comment that youth is the pathway forward. That was my only comment.
Yeah, and that goes very much hand in hand to respond to your question there. And it's been kind of set up here, is intrusive leadership. The folks that are trying to get something done, leading an effort, whatever, they do need to be intrusive. You need to reach into the communities to find the people. One of the things we found in one of our Southern Maryland Collaborates, Southern Maryland Thought Leaders group, is we thought we were talking about all the right stuff, and we looked around the table and we didn't have the right people at the table. So we started brainstorming about who were those people, how do we get them, do they represent an organization, a community, whatever. So making sure it's kind of like the scene from Hamilton, being in the room where it happens. They have to be there. So figuring out who they are, but also bringing in the right people that represent, I'll say, the power, but not in the traditional way of power, but the people that will get stuff done, making sure that the power people are in the same room as the people that need to be served, that both communities are there in the room at the table, hearing the same message and communicating with each other. So it's incumbent on all of us to make it happen, not just wait for it to happen.
Wow. Save the best for last. Alexia, thank you so much. Well, that's a good way to end it. I'll knock the microphone over and deafen everybody. I want to thank everyone.
Sorry, excuse me. We have two questions over Zoom. One is for Wynne and one is for you.
Well, go right ahead, please.
Perfect. So the first one for Wynne is, what do you think holds entrepreneurs back the most?
Themselves. I think that a lot of times they may have that instinct within themselves, and they may not have the wherewithal. Sometimes they don't have the support system, but in the end, a lot of times it is themselves, because there's support, there's financial, there's other things that are external to them. But at the end of the day, if they cannot get past themselves, then they're not able to connect with all of the things that can support them. So that's, in my personal opinion, the number one thing that holds entrepreneurs back.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, and you said there was a question for me?
Yes, sir. What role will and does the Velocity Center play in supporting innovation and invention? And what are the opportunities?
We're a convener. In many, many ways, this physical place, I'll describe it in two ways: physical place and the spirit of the place. We can convene up to 300 people in these two big auditoriums here. And then however many more we can touch online at any one given time. So that enables us to bring gravitas to different emerging situations. All I need to convene a meeting is enough folks interested to have one. That's one of the ancient, was it the Greeks had the lyceums where you step up and speak and other people could listen to you and judge your ideas on the quality of what they were and either say yes or vote with their feet and walk right out the door. So that's one function. On the back part of the building, we have several different size classrooms that are fully equipped. We have a teleconferencing center here. We have maker spaces. When this place really gets going, and I mean, we're moving now during the pandemic, but after we're safe to be together again, this place will serve as a education hub for Indian Head, a point of contact for advantages that working with the government on the base can give people, and not just the traditional people. I mean, our vision is to reach out to everyone, and through our association with Wynne and the SBDC, we can enable people to start their own businesses and have a very, very good chance of success. So our doors are open to everybody. And once you come in here, you come in with an idea, we'll sit down with a blank piece of paper and we will work with you to try to find the other resources in the community to bring to bear to the advantage of your suggestion. And we'll also help you decide for yourself whether you really want to do it, because there's something I believe in called the entrepreneurial spasm. It's when Uncle George goes out and says, yeah, well, you know, there's them rocks over on the side of the road and I need to make a rock thrower. And so he goes home and talks to folks at dinner and they develop this rock thrower. The only trouble is nobody wants to buy it. So that's an entrepreneurial spasm when you make something that nobody needs. So we try to help you work through that, identify all the mechanisms you need to put into place and demystify the process of going into business. So thank you for that question. Are there any more? George, go ahead. You can grab the microphone out of the stand if you don't want to bend over to it. There you go.
Oh, okay, it's all.
Yeah, the camera's behind you, actually.
Oh, okay. You said that right.
Oh, okay. We've got something else.
Oh, okay. I have a question for Ms. Briscoe. You said earlier that you can't learn everything through a textbook, through business. I just want to know, is the engineering side as important as the business side? Like, how do you need balance? Do you need balance with that? Oh, you want me? That can go to you too. You're important too. Oh, okay. That's awesome.
Good question, George.
Your question is the engineering side as important as the business side? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
I think both are vital. And if you're looking at the engineering field, but also as was stated by Hugh, who wants to buy what it is that you're selling? So we need to know, is it even a business or is it just a product, right? Because those are two very different things. So I think it's a deeper conversation to have to be able to really determine what you need to have as your strength, but both components will be vital.
All right, that sounds good. That sounds good. So you say you wanted to say something? Oh, okay. All right.
I think George is a politician, perhaps. Okay. Well, I want to thank all of our speakers today and all the folks who have taken their time and joined us. I'm so, every time I sit down with you people and hear things, it's like you make my mind smoke. So thank you all for coming today.